We're talking damn near a decade to get to that. It was 9 years. Most of them were 9 years to go from just a regular looking guy to one of these
really
completely ripped dude. It takes them forever, and I don't think that's
okay.
Fully
were they
discussed.
Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Rock, or were they like Ryan Reynolds? Hey, what's up? It's Torie Mathis, and I'm here with the one and only Sean Mathis, founder of Miles Through Time Automotive Museum.
What's going on?
So, if it's one thing I've noticed, it is that shit takes a long time.
How much time?
Much more time than you frickin' think it's gonna take. And I think because of that, a lot of people give up way too soon.
Quitting prematurely is a pretty big problem, I think.
I think for a lot of people, I know there's like some saying that says like, most people, they overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years. Like that's kind of a big issue.
Well, I mean, what it is it's disappointment. Once you don't hit that goal of whatever it is that you thought you were going to be able to do at a possibly unrealistic amount of time, it's easier to quit than keep going.
Do you think the key there then is bad expectations?
It definitely just unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was I told you I saw some of the Instagram posts that I saw are working out, weightlifting type stuff, and it shows you all kinds of exercises, and you see these guys that are just ripped, massive, right? And they show you exercises. You just do this, and you'll get biceps like me. And the thing is you have no idea how long that takes to get to that, because most of the time they're just talking about do these exercises, and you'll be ripped like me. Like, this is what I'm doing, and look at me. And so you look at that and you're like, okay, well, I'll do that. And, I give it some time, maybe a year or so. And you're like, you got a little bit of muscle, but you don't look like that guy that you originally were starting, that got you down this path. And so I had just recently seen this post where it showed multiple guys where they were and now how they are being one of those ripped guys that you're like, oh, that'd be awesome to look like that, right? We're talking damn near a decade to get to that. It was 9 years. Most of them were 9 years to go from just a regular looking guy to one of these
really
completely ripped dudes on Instagram where you're like, I don't know any guy that wouldn't at least secretly want to like have that kind of muscle. It takes them forever, and I don't think that's
okay.
Fully
were they
discussed.
Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Rock, or were they like Ryan Reynolds?
A little bit more than Ryan Reynolds, but they weren't Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not talking like
just
super crazy bodybuilder.
I didn't see the post, so kind of
like definitely a bigger ripped dude that definitely goes to the gym, and you're like, that guy works out, there's no denying it. Well, he's been working out for years to get to that level, but I could see, not realizing how long that really realistically takes, how easy it would be to quit even after 2 years. Yes, maybe you would obviously be healthier than what you were when you started. But that mentality of like, I'm not where I wanted to be, it makes it real easy to just throw in the towel.
Well, when we see shows like Biggest Loser, or you see somebody from one movie role, and then like the next year they do another, they're Fat Man in this movie role, and then like a year later or 6 months, like who knows, like whatever the small amount of time is, all of a sudden they're thin and ripped and everything. And so we're seeing that, like, why can't I do that too?
All right, not realizing that they're on a super strict regimen, that they've got people making food for them, telling them what to eat, exercising as a job. Who
knows how many hours a day, right?
Like, the normal person can't do that. And like, even when I go to I work out at the level that I can maintain for the long haul. I don't want to do anything that I'm like, all of a sudden I'm trying to do all this stuff to get to a certain level, and then once I'm there, I'd be like, okay, now I can stop and go back. Like I don't want to do that. I just want to keep cruising along.
I think that roller coaster of hardcore is like with anything, whether it's, working or working out or it's unhealthy. It's like you said, you can't keep up with that.
The
it's
level at what you
drive
do
into the ground.
Yeah, the level is going to vary, depending on who you are. It's not the same level for everybody, but what you can do consistently for you individually is what's important. What I could do consistently is going to be different than what Torie can do consistently.
However, though, and I always like to bring up season of your business, season of your life, because I do think that there is a time and a place where it's your hustle time.
Right.
You don't have kids, you're single. Do what you got to do in that time, because once you do have kids and once you do have a family, once you do have other obligations, like you maybe don't have the time to go to the gym 3 hours a day. You don't have, 12 hours a day to put into your business. So though I do think there are times where you do need to work a little bit harder because that's the season that you're in. I think though, not going crazy at that time too, maybe you would do a little bit more for a little bit longer. But again, you can't go all out for 3 months and think that, I'm going to have the greatest body ever or the greatest business ever, or, that whatever it is going to.
Well, the thing is you depending on your season, like you said, it can vary as far as what you do. But what happens is instead of toning it back down, okay, there's a life change. We need to pivot and do something a little bit different. They have more of this, fuck it, I quit,
right?
No,
yeah.
And then it drops, and then they're down in the gutter for a while.
Who did you just show me that picture of?
Of what?
It was some dude, and I was like, oh no, is that really him now?
Oh, Encino Man.
Man.
I don't remember his name.
I don't remember his name.
The Mummy.
Brendan. Fraser,
that's it. Yeah.
So it was like this split picture of Brendan Fraser looking like he did all those
the Mummy movies.
The Mummy movies, right? You said Encino Man, so that's what I was thinking. So he did the Mummy, and so he looked like that, very Harrison Ford, very thin, very fit, and then apparently now he's not looking so healthy.
Yeah, I mean he's older, but he didn't age well in that picture.
I didn't think it was him. I thought he had a fat suit on or something. Like I thought it was for a movie, and that because it was so far. Like you said, people just throwing in the towel and saying "fuck it." Like that is really what it looked like.
Yeah, but and you said people go from one role to another role when in the movie industry. Maybe he's burnt out from it, and
that's got to be hard.
It's not easy on your body. I can imagine.
Yeah, some of those people that have done that, even, who were we just talking about? The Guardians of the Galaxy guy. He was one of those that looked a certain way, and then once he started getting those roles, like, he looks like a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the greatest thing. I don't think I would do good at that. Like, I really enjoy working hard. I like working hard at the gym, but I'm like you that I want to work hard at a point that I can stay at, not where I'm going to run myself straight into the ground and burn myself out. Right. Because things take a long time. And so you always have to think that, like, this is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. People are like that with Facebook. Like, so many business owners are like, I don't want to do Facebook. Facebook doesn't work. It doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. Well, because they jump on there and go hardcore crazy for 2 weeks. They're 2-week Dan. They go 2 weeks. They post like crazy, which is weird. Like, if you look back, you'll see, like, for 2 weeks, there was like 500 posts. There was like 50, right? Posts, and then they never post again, and they're like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
It is a marathon, not a sprint. And most things are like that. And, that 9 years to get to that body shape, like, that tells you that is marathon. Like, you got to figure out what you can do for the long haul, not try to go too crazy.
Well, and that's like your social media profile. Like, you got to start somewhere. So, you are going to start with nobody following you.
Donut.
And then you're going to get your mom to follow you.
Yay, Mom.
And your spouse and your siblings and any of your friends that'll actually do it. And then you'll start growing. And when you're providing that relevant content that somebody actually wants to engage with, it'll start to slowly grow. But, going 100 miles an hour right out the gate and then hitting a brick wall and stopping is it going to do you any good? And you look at all these other, you could look at another business or even like a YouTube channel and you're like, how do they get so many subscribers? Go back and see how long they've been doing it and how many other videos are on there. And I mean, really, you don't know how much effort and time that they're putting into it. Like, there's no point in comparing yourself to that.
Well, and so many people, though, don't share the fact that it took 9 years. 9 years to get that body. And if I remember, like, if you watch this episode, I will put it here because I have it on my phone. I keep it for both Bella and I because Bella and I are both working on our YouTube channels.
You're going to put it right here?
And it's I will put it right here. And it's Evan Carmichael, who is a YouTuber that does a lot of business stuff. And he has shown, like, when he started, and I want to say he started, like, 2008, 2009, and it shows, like, how many subscribers he had every year. And he has, millions of subscribers now. But it really shows you that there were years that he had 2 digits, 3 digits. Like, it took a long time. And like most things, it's a bell curve. It starts out super slow. Then all of a sudden you have, the workout body. And you didn't notice that it happened, right? Gary Vee is the same way. If you follow Gary Vee, he did Wine TV and nobody watched. Like, he did a show a week for like an hour talking about wine. Yeah,
people think years. He just came out of nowhere. This guy that has all these followers and says all kinds of crazy, awesome stuff. But they don't realize, like, he's been doing it for a long time.
And nobody saw him for a long time. I preach all the time about how people should send emails. I encourage my clients to send emails. I send weekly, daily, even emails for some of my clients. Sean is fantastic at sending an email every week, every other week. He does a really great job. I, however, am super shitty at sending out a weekly email. Where are we at? Sean's been helping me.
How many emails have you sent out?
Yeah. In a row?
9.
The last 9 weeks, I have sent out an email every single week. They're not the greatest emails. They may not be how the emails end up going, but I have decided that I need to send out an email. And, my list is not that great. It's not very big. But I think it's more of the fact, and I was talking to Sean about this morning, it doesn't matter how many people are opening my emails right now. Right now, I need to be in that, Evan Carmichael 2008, where I'm just getting into the rhythm of no matter what, I have to put out an email every single week.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't really relevant for you to be doing that before in the past. Like, there's so much stuff that you've been doing for all kinds of different clients that sending it out an email to other customers, it didn't even make sense. No. I mean, not really, because what are you supposed to send? Something like, hey, this is I can design your website, or redesign it or whatever, and you don't really have even time for that.
It could have been done, but at the time, yeah, you're right. It wouldn't have been as relevant. However, I am not in the flow of sending out a weekly email because I just have never done it. I send out an email every once in a while. And so I have decided in order to help me do that, I do everything 75 hard style, right? I am numbering my emails. And so along with that email, I have a new blog post that'll come out that is actually written. And so I have the blog post and the email that goes with it, and every single one is numbered. So that's why, I knew Sean was going to know because on our, little, what is that called?
Dashboard part, our back end,
our project management software where I actually have it all in there. I have it numbered. And so I knew that this week was, email number 9 went out on Wednesday morning. And so next week will be 10. And so now that I have that, I think that's going to help me to not break that streak. Don't you wish you would know what week you were on for the gym? Wouldn't that be awesome?
For the gym?
Yeah, because then it's not cool. At first you're like, oh, it's week 2, it's week 3. But then when you get to a higher number, you're like, hell yeah, it's week 562.
They should make that more relevant on their app. When we give them the barcode to scan in, there should be a little bubble on that top right corner.
What number?
Yeah, how many days? Because you can go through and figure it out the long way. But I want to know right there on the top, you've been to the gym 700 times, and they could do so many cool things with that. And the whole point is that you want to keep going.
They do it monthly. So you can see, like, if you open it up, our gym app, it'll say how many times you visited per month, but then the month rolls over and it starts over.
Well, and the thing is it's kind of hidden. It's not in your face, hey, this is a rock star that keeps going to the gym. Yeah. Like how the Fitbit works, right? Mm-hmm. You want to keep track. You want to close those circles and do all, like, the same thing. If you can gamify any aspect of your business, and the gym could do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we talk about things that take a long time. If you expect that it's going to take a long time, I think that number really helps. I have a client that I send a daily email. I mentioned that earlier. And this morning I sent email 436. It's a lot. And when he first said it, he said, I'm going to do 30 days of daily emails. And he did 30 days and he got some feedback and everything. And now he's stuck with it and we're in the 430s. But the thing is that, like, after 100 something, he kind of tweaked the title of it. And so I thought that he was tweaking it enough to take off the day. And he's like, no, put the day back on there, because then he has every day when he does it, he's knowing that, like, you don't break that cycle. And he didn't break it for Christmas. He didn't break it for New Year's. I send out an email for him, every single day. But I think that helps, that then when he looks back 9 years later, like, if he still does that, like, that is an amazing number. That's like where you can really see your achievement, because things take a long time. And I think it took him a while. Like, I could tell, like, where it was a little clunky, and then all of a sudden he kind of broke through whatever that was and kind of found his voice in his emails. And now I'm sure he has a better process, that it's a lot easier, because sometimes getting through that first 10, 20, 30, 100, like, it may be weird. Like, even going to the gym. I think about when we first started going, I had always gone to the gym. Like, I was in the Army. We worked out all the time. So I've always been very athletic and done those kind of things, but I never, like, lifted weights. And so when I first went, we did the normal, I did the normal stuff. I was on the elliptical or whatever, did a couple things. And then I started working out with a trainer because I have a hip injury and I just kept hurting myself over and over again. It would make it so that the gym was crap for me. So I decided to work out with a trainer, and he does some, like, CrossFit Olympic lifting type stuff, which I never thought that I would really be into. However, I, like, totally love it. But when I first started going, like, even, like, taking the weights down and re-racking, like, it was awkward. Like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And now I see these new people coming in and they're at that same level. I was like, oh, like, I was there too. But now I feel very comfortable with what I'm doing. And so now I have to find different ways. Me and this other lady that I work out with, like, we've been there longer than a lot of these other people, that, like, we're pushing ourselves to a different level than all these newer people are. But it took a while to get to that, like, unclunky time that things just, like, feel a little bit better. And you gotta push through that time, because it's funky. Even, like, doing our podcast, doing our show, it was weird. You gotta get through the weird. And if you can't get through the weird, I think the numbers help. Like, I'm gonna do this 100 days. I'm gonna do this 100 times. I'm gonna send 100 emails, and then just don't not do it. Like, you have to do it, and doing it by that number and being able to check off that number every single time. Like, I think that helps.
Well, I mean, it definitely gets easier. Like, the more you do it, the easier it gets. So and things are a lot of times awkward, difficult when you first start. And so if you pay attention, that all of a sudden something's going to click, and it just gets easier and easier, more comfortable, and you're able to do things just so much easier than when you first started. And then I think a lot of times that is also another time when people then they quit. Well, it was too boring and too easy.
I hear salespeople say all the time, or people that are like business coaches say that whatever's, like, when it's working in someone's business, then they all of a sudden start doing something else. And
Right.
They're like, my business isn't good. Well, what happened? Well, I changed and started doing this. Well, why aren't you doing this that worked? Well, it got boring that I was doing it and doing it and doing it. Sometimes that's the stuff that you got to keep doing. So,
There's ways to make things...
the gamifying thing to me
a little
is
more
so
challenging. You can make it fun again and still have it be super easy. Yeah,
I think though everybody like you got to figure out what works for you. Right. If the number works for you, if closing the circles, like the Fitbit type thing, works for you, you got to figure out whatever that thing is. Because like what works for me might not work for you, but I think that if you can figure out what that is for you, then man, that's when magic happens.
Right. I mean, even if you were trying to get a bunch of followers on your Facebook business page, instead of saying I want 1,000 followers in 12 months, say I want 10 in a month, and do it in increments, and say I just want to do it on a daily basis or whatever the case may be.
Well, I think if you can figure out how to do 10, you're like, that's 10. I just need to do that many more.
Right. And just keep going, and don't go straight from 0 to 1,000, because I think people don't even realize that they procrastinate and other things happen. And, instead of they're focusing on that end number instead of focusing on what they need to do to get to that number, where you will get to that number if you're doing what you need to get to that number. I think it's like
that bell curve we talked about. Let's see. So, you get 1 follower, you get none, you get 2, you get 3, you get 10, and then you're like, oh, that's what works. You had all this time. Like, it takes a while to get to that point that all of a sudden you're like, that's what I need to do. And then it goes up.
Right.
But it's hard to get to that point. But.
And there's no set rule. There's no, it'll happen in 30 days or 40 days. It'll happen when it does. And you can't be discouraged on that kind of stuff.
I realized that, I don't remember who I learned it from, but somebody talked about the power of incremental change. And I was like, because I, like everybody, I want things to happen. I want to work hard and I want things to happen. But if you can figure out how to make an incremental change every day, every week, because incremental is like 1%. Like 0.5%. Do whatever it is. If you, however many followers you got last week, if it's like the followers, then just do 1% more. How do you do 1%? Because that 1% is easy for anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so how do you figure out that 1%? And if you do 1% and then 1% and then 1%, over time, it is a crazy amount that adds up, and you didn't even notice how hard you were working for it, that it doesn't have to be this huge leaps and bounds, because that's where you might fail, trying to do too much, too hard, too quickly, rather than just, trying to figure out how to get that marathon going for yourself.
Even back to the dog grooming, right? If the dog groomer would capture the email and get you back there, right? Because you're already a customer once, but then maybe they send, you come back and encourage a friend of yours to come in and get the dog's nails cut. They do that a couple of times, 1 turns into 2, 2 turns into 4. And before you know it, they've got a huge clientele, massive list of people that could come in there where, a couple of emails is all that would have taken, where, if right now they're just sitting waiting for somebody to call them, and it's going to take them forever, but if they did that one little change, it will grow much faster.
It's kind of the same thing about making money also. You hear about millionaires or, people that have a shit ton of money, that the first million, getting to that one point took a really long time. But then once they figured that out, it's with investing or anything that has that compounding factor, that it takes a long time to get to that first level. But once you figure that part out, then it's a lot easier. I follow a couple of investment, one of those, it's Financial Freedom Retire Early. So it's FIRE, people on Instagram, and they share monthly where their savings are at with their stocks, or a lot of them do index funds and things like that. And it shows, a lot of them will show, I love seeing other people's stats, because like Sean with the 9 months, or, Evan Carmichael with his Instagram followers, they're showing how much money they had saved, and it's very little, very little, very little. And then all of a sudden, once they hit that 100, 200, 300,000, then it really, really starts to take off. But so many people don't even give themselves that long to get to that point. I was thinking about like when I started my business, I started in 2007. I started out of necessity. I did publishing for real estate magazines and worked for a little teeny publishing house. And when the real estate market collapsed, my job kind of went with it because every single client we had was a realtor. So a couple of them, I think we had 55 at one time, different magazines that we did monthly for different real estate offices. And after all of that happened, and it happened very quickly, I think I had 4 or 5. And so you really can't like run like a huge business from that. So the lady that ran the company kind of bowed out. And then I, started my design business right there and, took those couple of clients and I still did the magazine and started doing some other things, logos and brochures and grew my business from there. And for quite a while, like I, just me designing, Sean still worked for Pepsi. I didn't make that much money at all. And it took a little while to get to that point of figuring out like what I needed to do and everything. And I remember when I first made $1,000 a month and I'm like, holy shit, like these are my clients and my hands. And like, I am doing this. Like that was a huge thing. And
I remember
only $1,000. And I figured how to get people reoccurring. And like, rather than having them pay for something, like a large sum of money and talk them into doing it at one time, I figured out how to have them pay monthly and then I could stretch out and then they were clients for longer and then they would like me more because I worked with them more often. And I kind of figured out what worked for me. And I was at that level for quite a while and it took, so that was 2007. It took until 2012, 2012 that I made $100,000 in a year. And that was like a huge turning point, but it took a long time to get from that 1,000 to the next, to $100,000. But what a huge change that is. And now, like, I know how to make $100,000. It's not hard to do, when I started though, I had no clue. And so you get to this point with different skills and different levels that level isn't hard anymore. But if you don't put in the time and if you don't put in, I don't even want to say like the hours because it's not necessarily hours. But I could have never said like, I want to make 100,000 in 2 years. Like, I don't think I could have done it. Kind of like Miles Through Time, you talked about that too, right? That if you had, it took Sean a while to build up Miles Through Time and he had to go through a first location that didn't turn out very great, that was very binding, like stifling his growth. But it's nice that you got to work out some stuff and work out some details, even just like how we work with it and how you wanted it to work, because it's hard to lay down details in the beginning because I really think it's good to be flexible with things. Like I think people try to be too strict in the beginning and then that means they can't grow or can't like move around at all. And then it kind of makes you want to quit because like the box you built is not the right box. That's kind of scary. Like you spend all this time building the box and you're like, fuck, the wrong box.
Right. And Miles Through Time, like we essentially spent 3 years figuring out what Miles Through Time is. And that 4th year started over from scratch. I mean, essentially a handful of cars.
But like didn't we talk about that? Like if you had to start, like if you didn't have Miles Through Time, it wiped out, blew up, gone. If you had to start from nothing right now.
I could do it so much easier.
So quick.
Yeah, even if I didn't have anything at all, I could get to where I am today so much faster than I did the first time.
So when you first started, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you first started, do you think that did you think it would take this long to get to where you're at?
I had no idea. And I think that's part of it is I didn't really have an expectation as far as I wanted to be at a certain point by a certain time. I was just kind of like along for the ride and going like, let's see where I can go and kind of figuring stuff out as I went. And then at some point, it was 2019, I kind of like, I knew exactly at that point what it was that it needed to be and what I didn't want, what I did want.
I think that's key. Knowing what you don't want sometimes is stronger than knowing what you want. And you definitely knew like this wasn't.
And the one thing that was consistent across the board from the beginning was collecting the data so that we could go back and figure out all this stuff. So it wasn't just my emotions that I had to go off of, which can be jaded and changed and remembered incorrectly. Where we have data going, these are the people that came in, these are the days of the week that they came in, what time they came in, how many, obviously. And it's from those numbers that I was able to determine that in 2020, the first year that the museum opened up in the new location, we had more visitors than the first 3 years combined. I just looked at the data again, and we are already more like 200 more visitors this year than we were all of last year.
Really?
Yeah, and we're only 7 months into it. Yeah, so it's that kind of stuff. So I'm like, all right, we're in the right direction. Like we keep going this way, and it's working, which then gives me, it makes me want to do more and more and more. And I think that's kind of almost a subconscious thing that, you don't even think about it. You are doing more and more. Better things happen. It's pretty neat though to look at that kind of stuff and go, I mean, I think I told you it was like, well, yesterday we had a shit ton of people visit the museum on a Tuesday. Over 50 people. So I don't know what it is right now, but the other day, a few days ago, I was looking and we're averaging 38 visitors daily, 7 days a week so far this year. Unless it's like one of the museums in DC, that's a pretty good number.
Because we visited some really big ones.
We've been to some big ones, and there's like...
I was surprised. So we went to Barber, which is a multi-million-dollar facility. It, like, overhead, like, crazy. Mm-hmm. And they said that they had days that they have
nobody.
2 people.
Yeah. We were at in Tampa, and Tampa's got a really nice museum. It's all privately owned there, but it's a really nice collection in a very, obviously, touristy town. And their best days that were rare, it's not like it happens all the time, they might get 100 people in there, but for the most part, they're not getting anywhere near that. And while we were there, I mean, we were there by ourselves the majority of the time, and then there might have been a handful of other people in there. But it's not like it's like a ton of people in there all the time. And that's what makes, running any of these museums so difficult, is that they're never super busy in there, and that's how they make money.
If we didn't go and travel to those places, we wouldn't know that.
No, you'd have this expectation of these other museums are so big, and they get 20 people in there every hour that they're open, and that's not the case. And you can tell on some of these big ones, there's a reason why it costs $20 per person to go in there. It's because they don't have the volume to make it less. Like, it has to be that much. Because they're looking at their data going, this is how many people we have visiting the museum. These are our costs. This is what has to be charged for people to come in there. And then there's that threshold of, what's too much that somebody's not willing to pay, and what's, what are they willing to pay for what they have.
Well, that's almost the same as you can't go too hard and too crazy and kill your business or kill your motivation. Like, where's that sweet spot where you're still moving forward, right. You're still challenging yourself, but it's enough that you can keep going. Right. For the long haul, marathon. So
that's what I look at that data, and then it makes it so that I can, forecast in the future what it is that we need to do and what the outcome from those actions will be. If we have more space and admission is more and the number of visitors go up, like, those are all good, positive things that's just going to keep making it better and better.
And it's nice to have that data, that whatever that benchmark is. Because then you can look back and then you can share that with other people. Like, thank you so much for those people on Instagram to say it took 9 months. Or thank you for Evan Carmichael for being honest and saying, I went through years with no subscribers. Or Gary V, or you with the museum. Like, there are so many things that you really don't know what's going on with other people. And it's really easy to assume that things happened quick or that they had luck or whatever. Like, fixing these expectations that we have really is important to making yourself succeed. because it's expectations that don't get met that, kill dreams and kill goals and kill motivation.
I think the best thing you can do is, instead of having that gigantic end goal result, do the 75 hard style, just one day at a time.
Number it. Keep that number so that you can check it off or whatever. Yep. Today is number 5. Tomorrow is number 6. Yep. Then number 7. Just like my weekly email. Now that I've started it and I'm on 9, like I got to do 10. Yeah, I think that's going to help me keep going.
Marathon runners don't look down to the finish line. They're looking at the next corner, and they just got to make it past that corner and the next one and the next one, and then eventually they finish. But if you straight from the beginning look towards the finish line, it's so far away that it can be discouraging, or you start to doubt yourself. And doubt is a huge killer. Doubt's stupid and irrational because there's nothing that says you can't do it or fail. It's just your mind telling you, making you doubt that you can do it. And then ultimately it's your action that says you can't do it. So if you have the action to actually make stuff happen, then you'll get it done. So that those smaller increments will make it happen and much easier.
So if you want to check out my daily email, come on over to TorieMathis.com, sign up. Next week, it's email number 10. I would love to have you join me. And you know what? We have new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, and we would love it if you would come and watch. We would definitely appreciate that. And if you're ever in the Atlanta, Georgia area, you need to come by Miles Through Time Automotive Museum. Sean will give you a tour.
Maybe, if I'm there.
We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.
Later.